Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company. They offer free checking with industry-leading mobile banking. Who you choose to bank with can make all the difference. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into episode 430 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We are 11 days away from Virginia Tech and the South Carolina Gamecocks, so it's time to get into our preseason previews. Today is the offense for Philip Montgomery and Virginia Tech. All that and much more on episode 430 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. And we're recording on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 from the Tech Solutions Studios in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our lead analyst and columnist, Chris Coleman. Across the way is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. Our director of media, Nick Brown, is producing behind the scenes. We are so thrilled you could join us on your Wednesday morning. Guys, football season's here. Week 0 is here. That's crazy to think about, too, by the way. First weekend of college football.
What was it, Iowa State playing?
Farmageddon, yeah. Iowa
Dublin.
State and Kansas State.
Yeah.
You know, classic start to the season in Dublin.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's like when MLB starts the season in Japan. Like,
Yes.
I understand why they do it and why they have to do it logistically because it's so far away, but it is kind of weird that that's where the season opens.
That's where the season starts. I've been to that game once. It's a lot of fun. Now, I went when Notre Dame was there. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So some of these games don't. Maybe these two teams known for their Irish alums.
No, but it's a big game in the
idea,
Big 12. It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, you saw what? Notre Dame
and Navy.
Navy
wasn't much
Notre
of a
Dame
game.
crushed them.
It was like 44-3 or something.
This could be at least a decent game. Last year was a great game.
Yes.
Georgia Tech beating Florida State.
Although we didn't know
everybody
at
loved
the
it.
time. We were like, "Wow, is Georgia Tech really good?" Like,
They were pretty good.
They were
but Florida
good.
State
Florida
was
was
terrible.
bad.
Yeah, that was the bigger story.
Now this one could be cool because, like you said, Farmageddon. I mean, first of all, what a great rivalry name.
Oh, it's fantastic.
for that
Farmageddon,
game.
yeah.
But this is I think any Big 12 matchup this year could be really fascinating because all the teams are basically the same.
Yeah.
Like top to bottom. Like I think people are picking West Virginia last. It's like, is West Virginia that bad compared to whoever the top of the conference is? Like, I don't know. I think that could be a very interesting conference.
That's what happens when like Oklahoma leaves.
Right. Well,
And everybody else is even.
that's going to be the ACC. When
Right.
Clemson and
Like
Florida
imagine
State leave.
if Clemson left.
Yeah.
Then it'd be like, okay, who's going to win that league on a yearly basis?
Right,
It
yeah.
would literally be wide open.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Was that the game they ran out of beer, Chris? In Ireland? They ran out of
think
beer
so.
that day?
If they ran out of beer, I helped them contribute. I was a contributor. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. All right. Stanford goes to Hawaii, too. Big ACC game. So week 0 ACC football is underway. Andy's going to make his tacos at the TSL get-together. I'm looking forward to it.
Carter is coming, so I have to make twice as many tacos as planned. I don't know where he puts it, but he eats a lot of tacos.
It goes, trust me, it goes right here. It's a good time. It's a good time. So, all right. Do you want to see Tech play out there one year, by the way?
Oh,
in Dublin?
absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, like, for me, these bowl games are so meaningless these days. I would do some sort of thing where everybody had like an early season game that was based on some sort of coefficient, maybe like a 3 or 4 year coefficient. How good you've been the last 3 or 4 years determines who you play in non-conference to start the next season. And that's the new bowl system for me.
Yeah.
I mean, these bowl games are a joke. Half the teams opt out. Half the coaching staffs are gone, right? Like, these bowl games are meaningless. I would make the bowl games at the beginning of the year when they could actually matter.
It would almost have to be the opponent that gives up the home game, though, right? Like Virginia Tech wouldn't give up a home game to go to Ireland, I wouldn't think.
No, that's always the challenge of this thing. Well, and part of it depends what's the payout. And now it's like you don't want to give up a home game, but everybody and their moms could be watching this game on Saturday. It's the only game in town. It's the start of the football season. Like, people are just jonesing for football right now.
And now with the ACC's new media rights, or how they split the
it's going to
revenue,
be a huge number that they put up there. If this was an ACC team playing in this game, this would shoot them up the charts on the viewership numbers quite a bit. So I would have to imagine this is going to be a coveted spot going forward. And I mean, hey, I want to go. I want to get a company paid trip to Ireland. That'd be sweet.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Carolina goes out
Come
there
on,
next
ACC,
year.
make it happen.
Yeah,
Make it happen.
Carolina goes out there next year. They play TCU out there. So return trip to Fort Worth is now to Dublin, Ireland. So, all right, Virginia Tech offensively, a lot of question marks. Philip Montgomery comes in as the offensive coordinator, obviously the former head coach at Tulsa, offensive coordinator at Auburn. The big question to me is, obviously there's a lot of new pieces, But is the change at the coordinator spot going to be enough for Virginia Tech to take that step off offensively, Chris? What do you think?
I think what I'll be looking for is, do they get off to a good start offensively, or at least a decent start? Do they look like they know what they're doing the first month of the season? Obviously, 2 years ago, it took them a month to figure out what type of offense they wanted to run. Last year, Drones comes out and said he was trying to play hero ball in the month of September, and the offense never really found its footing until the 5th game of the season. 2 years in a row, it's been the 5th game of the season before the offense figured out what the heck to do.
Sure, yeah.
You would like to see, ideally, I'd like to watch their early games this year and know that whether they're playing great or whether they're not playing not so great, I'd like to know, well, at least what they're doing makes sense. And I am more confident with a guy like Montgomery in there from that standpoint. The thing about Bowen is, like, good Bowen was really good and bad Bowen was really bad. Like, I don't know that, like, the good Montgomery will be as good as good Bowen, but I don't think there's necessarily a bad Montgomery. I would expect much more consistency.
I think there's so much experience that he has as a coordinator that, whatever he sees the defense doing, he's going to have a response. And I feel like that was the critique of Bowen, is didn't always have a response. If something was working right from the bat, it looked great. BC and Tootin running all over those guys. There were a couple of games where he was just hitting it every time they called a play. It worked. Then there were other games where you just can't get anything going. It's like, this game plan is not working. You need to adjust on the fly with that. And that was not his strong suit, and I think that comes with experience. And Montgomery is an experienced guy. So I don't know what to expect with this offense. He's kind of had all sorts of types of offenses that, stress the run, stress the pass. His last time out at Auburn was not great, but sure, look at Auburn right now. They have like 3 different play callers and 3 different quarterbacks. Like
Hugh Freeze.
I don't think Philip Montgomery was the problem at Auburn that year.
I would not want to be Hugh Freeze's offensive coordinator. Right. You have no freedom of action at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly how it went right away. It's like he gets in there and he wasn't allowed to run his offense and really be in charge of it. It's like, this is not going to work out. So I'm not judging him based on that time there, but you look at his history, and I think he's got success working with different types of quarterbacks, working with different types of offenses that have, strengths in the receivers, strengths in the running backs. I'm sure there were offensive lines in there that were good and offensive lines that were not good, and he still put up pretty good numbers with a lot of different offenses. So I think he's got that experience to be able to power through what kind of difficulties they have, and let's face it, you're going to face some difficulties when the season comes around.
Tech is it fair to say may accidentally back themselves into a corner where they upgraded at that spot? I mean, they weren't going to make a change at offensive coordinator. They made their change on the defensive side, and Tyler Bowen moves on.
I think they upgraded both coordinator spots.
Okay.
I mean, defense intentionally and offensively, I think unintentionally. And again, I'm not saying Bowen was bad, but, when I talked to Pry about, you made the defense coordinator change, not the offensive coordinator change. I think this was in June when I talked to him. He's like, you saw the improvement with the quarterback play. Drones got out of that first month and played pretty well at Miami, played pretty well Stanford, BC. He's like, that's why I didn't make a change at offensive coordinator. So it at least entered his mind during the season that this is an issue that they have to address. And he saw where the offense came out with some of the progression. I think, end of the year, you're on your 3rd string quarterback. It's going to be tough for anybody to put up points. And they went out there and they put up points against UVA. Now, granted, that was a UVA team that was giving up points to everybody, but they found ways to be productive even though they went down the line at the depth chart. That said, I think you could have made a change at offensive coordinator if you want to. Perhaps Tyler Bowen saw that on the horizon. That's part of the reason, sometimes you get out ahead of the posse when you have a good job offer like that on the table.
I don't know this for a fact, but I heard that Pry told Bowen, it's like, look, I don't want to change 2 coordinators in one offseason, but if we don't improve offensively this year, I will make a change next year. And Bowen's still a young coach, with a relatively good resume for someone his age. Getting fired from Virginia Tech would be a black mark on that resume.
Sure.
So I think he found himself a nice soft landing spot. And coaching at Ohio State is a pretty darn soft landing spot.
Yes, it is. It is. Defending national champions.
And so it's great. Maybe Pry was secretly wishing that's what Bowen would do, and that way he could change offensive coordinators without paying a buyout.
Yeah.
I would love to have a soft landing spot with a pay raise playing to coach for the national champions.
It'd be amazing.
Like, that'd be awesome.
And don't have the pressure of calling plays anymore, too.
He gets a run game coordinator title in there, too. Like, that's, that's great for his career arc, moving up like that. You look at his position versus where Chris Marv is in their career arc. Bowen came out on top of that whole thing.
Yep.
All right, let's go position by position. Quarterbacks. Kyron Drones obviously is back for a third season. The big question mark to me offensively, Chris, is he's got to stay healthy. Like, without a doubt, Kyron Drones has got to stay healthy in 2025.
Yeah. You just look at the other quarterbacks on the roster. Garrett Rangel. Is it Rangel?
Yep,
Rangel. I've got it. All right. He's I think he's got the arm talent, but there's been some inconsistencies there. And I know Oklahoma State was really bad this past season, but when you're completing 51% of your passes, I believe, for your career, there's obviously perhaps some issues there. And Pop Watson's still a very young and inexperienced player. So when it comes down to it, we don't know for a fact that for all I know, one of those guys would come in and absolutely get it done, and the light's about to come on for them, and they do a great job. But you don't want to take that risk, when you look at their career numbers and things like that. Kyron Drones, when Kyron Drones is on, he's a good player. And the challenge, of course, is to have own Kyron Drones on the field more often than the off Kyron Drones.
Yeah, the 2023 version.
Exactly. So I think that's the big challenge this year is how Drones adapts to Montgomery's offense, how Montgomery adapts his own offense to Drones. There's got to be sort of a meeting in the middle right there.
I'm curious to see the kind of progress Drones makes with a true dedicated quarterbacks coach like this. They sort of piecemealed it before. Tyler Bowen coaching it last year had not coached quarterbacks in his career. Played tight end in college. That was his specialty, sort of run game stuff and blocking and that. So I know they have Brian Christ on staff like this, but to have your coordinator also be the quarterback's coach and the guy who is just like you're hearing on a daily basis, and look at his history. Robert Griffin III, Heisman Trophy winner, Case Keenum, Bryce Petty. That guy at Tulsa that had the Fu Manchu at the bowl game was pretty good. There's a history of pretty good quarterback play and a tutelage that's there that he's teaching these guys the ins and outs in the game. So I'm curious to see Kyron getting that kind of coaching. What can he be this year? And obviously health. Sure. What kind of numbers could he have put up last year? He sort of turned a corner in that middle of the season. Then he got hurt. And then it was a disaster the rest of the way because he just couldn't move. You give him a full season of this kind of coaching, you give him a full season in this offense, you give him a full season of health, I think he could do what he did in 2023 and possibly eclipse that. Now, we always look at the ideal version of a situation right now in the preseason because that's what you do. You don't anticipate injuries and all those things coming into it. But I think he could be in line for a pretty big year if things come together.
Who's the backup quarterback? Pop Watson, Garrett Rangel. Started 5 games at Oklahoma State. Pop obviously started his fair share at Virginia Tech last year. Who's the backup quarterback?
I don't know. We haven't seen enough to draw any kind of real opinions on it.
I guessed in my quarterbacks article, which I wrote couple weeks ago, I guessed that it would be Rangel because he's like the type of quarterback that Montgomery normally recruits. But I don't think Montgomery came in saying, it's definitely going to be this guy or that guy. I mean, I think he went into it very much with an open mind. So that's one of the things I'm actually going to be looking at first when the depth chart is released, if a depth chart.
You think a depth chart is getting released?
Who knows?
Are you out of your mind?
I mean, that would be the
I put there like 5% that they release a depth chart on this.
Okay.
They would. You might be right. They've always released one in the past. This would be the final step towards full information blackout.
Yeah, I have to imagine they're not going to. I mean, I would hope that they would as a reporter. I'm going to put out a depth chart projection on Monday.
Right.
I feel it'll be pretty accurate in the ballpark of this whole thing.
For sure. There's always a few that happen that you weren't necessarily expecting, but I think we mostly know.
I always like getting as like Kyle Chung starting right tackle or something like this. Like that came out of nowhere. I didn't expect something like that. We don't even know the early week story.
We don't even know the names of some of the positions. Like they have an
true. There's no star anymore, right? So
there's no star. There's a Mike and a Will again, but the only reason we know they're still called Mike and Will is because George Balance told me.
Right.
We haven't had the coaching staff hasn't come out and said, well, we've got Jaden Keller working at the Will spot and Caleb Woodson working at the Mike spot. They're all linebackers, right? And even some of their linebackers that they list on the roster are actually edges.
Right.
You know, and then there's a separate defensive end spot. But they haven't officially told anybody that yet. We've just had to figure it out on our own. So we'll see if you're right. They might not release a depth chart.
We'll see. Do you have to go and designate a number 2 quarterback right now? Maybe you tell them, but do you have to publicly announce it?
If you don't, you could.
I'd like it if they did.
You put "or" on the depth chart. My guess is if they do
Yeah,
release the depth chart, there's going to be a whole bunch of "ors."
Yes.
Yeah, I could see an "or" there just as a nod to, like, you know, Pop Watson's been in the program a couple years. Rangel is still new to this whole thing. That said, Rangel is somebody who Montgomery personally recruited to play in this system, and he's got a little bit more experience in his career. I think ideal situation, they don't have to go to their backup quarterback this year. I mean, they had to go to it far too often last year. I mean, critically, in the very first game of the season, when Drones, was suffering full body cramps, he said he's never experienced something like that in overtime of that game or at the end of that game. So you're going to need him at some point. It's inevitable. I mean, even like an equipment failure at some point, Drones has to come out of the game for a play or something like that. You're going to need it. It'll be interesting to see who they put in first because I really don't know. I don't know how to break
I hope
it
we
down.
find out in the second half, the third week of the season, when you're up on
Wofford.
Wofford,
Old Dominion Wofford, yeah.
Whichever it is. Is it Old Dominion?
Old Dominion, yeah.
When Tech is up by like 4 or 5 touchdowns. That's what
That
I'm
would be
hoping.
ideal. Yeah.
Because if we don't find out who the backup quarterback is in the ODU game, then it's going to be a long season.
You don't want to find out who it is in the South Carolina game.
No, you don't.
Do not want to find out who it is in the South Carolina game.
I mean, if you're up big, you'd love to
That's
find
true.
out.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Maybe.
So if Garrett Rangel's the backup quarterback, just a side note, because obviously he was so hyped up after the way the year ended last year, how does that affect Pop Watson's future at Virginia Tech? That's the second consecutive year he'd be the third string quarterback when he seems like he'd be ready to get on the field if need be.
Yeah, and there comes a point in time, you can only rep so many quarterbacks. Like once you get into these game weeks, like you're repping the first team offense and the second team offense. You want your backup quarterback to be ready. So do you really want to take his reps away to give reps to the third string guy when, yes, I know Tech needed the third quarterback last year, but most of the time you don't need a third quarterback. So I just, that would be interesting. I would expect, like, if Pop did not win the backup job this year, Drones is a senior, so I would expect they would bring in a transfer to compete with Rangel in the spring, and I would think Watson would probably be like, nah, time to move on. But I don't know. I'm not in his head, so there's no way to speculate. But I do think he's reached the point in his career where he needs everyday reps to make progress as a player.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about your standing at the end of the season. Like, where are you in that situation? Stuff happens. I mean, I don't think Pop Watson thought that he'd get on the field last year after the way they set up the depth chart at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden he's starting the bowl game and against UVA at the end of the season. So who knows? Injuries happen and people slide up depth charts, and we don't even know. And Pop could be the backup coming out of this competition here.
And let's not forget that Rangel's season ended last year when he broke his collarbone.
Yeah, early too, right?
Right.
But just remember that the quarterback deck gets shuffled every single year.
Yeah.
Drones will be done after this year. You assume it's a competition between Rangel and Pop in the spring, but I think it's also possible that the starting quarterback next year is not on this roster currently, because that's just how it works. Now, there's not this, grocery store of quarterbacks out there anymore, because all the COVID guys have worked their way through. Essentially, you don't just have 5th and 6th year quarterbacks that are there, easy to take to pluck off the shelves and that whole thing. But when's the homegrown quarterbacks that the Hokies have started in the last decade, Hendon Hooker, Josh Jackson for a year, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Pop Watson got some start at the end of the year, but he wasn't the starting quarterback at that point. I mean, you have to go back to Logan Thomas for a guy that started multiple years that they've developed within this program. So that's, you got guys in there.
Oh, my God.
You got spot starts.
Quincy Patterson started
He started the Notre Dame.
Yeah, you got
game, right?
spot starts, but you didn't have like full season
the
or
guy.
multiple seasons.
Right.
Josh Jackson got hurt. Hooker had his whole thing during the COVID year and then ended up leaving after that. So to have multiple year starter that's homegrown is very rare. So I would imagine they would probably take a transfer and then, see how that plays out. And people transfer in the winter, people transfer in the spring. I mean, there's a lot to play out next year before you start worrying about what's this going to mean for this guy coming up.
Right. All right, running back room. Obviously, no more Bashaw Tootin. Terrion Stewart's the headliner coming in from Bowling Green. Braden Bennett from Coastal Carolina. Marcellus Hawkins, who's gotten a lot of hype, coming in from Central Missouri. And then Jeremiah Coney and PJ Prelo are still around. So you got 5 running backs in that room that have played significant time before. Tyler Mason's also still here too. How do you guys view the running back room as a whole?
I think Marcellus Hawkins might be the headliner.
Okay,
right now.
okay.
Every time we have talked to coaches, they kind of like perk up a little bit when they talk about this guy. They showed a clip on Hokies FB on Twitter of him hurdling a safety that came up trying to tackle him in a one-on-one drill. The way Pry has talked about him, and he's Hawkins has slimmed down in the offseason. Sounds like 10, 15 pounds, get a little bit sleeker. He was injured in the spring a little bit. This sounds like a guy who can do it all on the field. I would expect him, and Pry said this in a podcast with Bill Roth. He's the number 1 guy right now.
Yeah.
If they started the game today, he'd be the starter. And if you're projected to be the starter a week and a half before the start of the season, I think you're probably going to be the starter at that point. Now, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be the only guy getting carries. And I think you look at Stewart, and he's sort of a bowling ball of a running back. He's dealt with injury issues as well and has been nicked up a little bit this spring. Braden Bennett catching the ball, PJ Prelo, another sort of scat back type guy that can do a lot of different things. I think there are multiple guys that can help in this offense, but man, the more I hear about Hawkins, and just every time we talk to the coaches, they seem to bring him up. It makes me think that guy's the starter and probably should get the lion's share of carries.
I know Terrion Stewart got all the headlines mostly because he came from an FBS school, and Marcellus Hawkins came from a Division II school. Sure. But Terrion Stewart is very one-dimensional. The passing game has been an issue for him. Like Bowling Green last year only asked him to pass block 16 times. And I think he only had like 1 or 2 catches. So he's a guy that if he's in the game, it's going to be a run, right? So that can't be your primary running back because it tips off plays too easy, or at least the types of plays. He's going to play. He's going to play a lot. He's going to run over some dudes. He's going to be a good player with the ball in his hands, but I don't think you could say that he's going to be Virginia Tech's primary running back right now. And Braden Bennett is a guy who's been great in the passing game in the past, and he's been a good runner, but a lot of times he's been, sort of an outside runner. I think Marcellus Hawkins is he's the balance of both those guys. He's maybe not quite as strong and as beastly as Terrion Stewart. He's maybe not quite as good in the passing game as Braden Bennett, but he's the best on average. Average all that together, he's Virginia Tech's best option at tailback. That's what it kind of seems like right now.
It seems like they want to play 3 consistently.
They do,
right?
They do.
Okay.
And I would expect some 2-back formations. I've seen Braden Bennett at Coastal Carolina when he was there catch pitches on option plays. You could run a triple option. You can run speed option. You could run and you could work the pass off the option game with and you could have either Hawkins or Stewart is like a B-back in that situation. Or actually, Hawkins could be either one. He could be the B-back or he could be the pitch man. So I'm very interested to see if they work in any 2-back formations with option this year. I know Montgomery probably isn't known for running the option, at least a traditional option play. But, Virginia Tech, they have the personnel to run the option, right? And Brent Davis, still on the staff as tight ends coach, was Army's offensive coordinator for 9 years. He's one of the best option coaches in football. I think I'll be interested to see how his style, if he and Montgomery can kind of marry their styles together to a certain extent, because it's Virginia Tech, oddly enough, doesn't have the personnel for what like a traditional Montgomery offense is known for. But they do have the personnel for what a Brent Davis offense is known for. So I do think we'll see some of those elements implemented into the Tech offense.
It'll be like, I won't even discount Jeremiah Coney right now. We didn't mention him in the lead up to this whole thing. I mean, he showed out a couple times when he played last year. That Syracuse game, he was pretty good in that game. Tyler Mason's still pretty young. I think he has time to develop there. Prelo's an interesting one. I'm curious to see because he was on the verge of having a role last year. I mean, he had a 60-plus yard touchdown against Miami wiped out for a bogus penalty. And I think we'd be looking at his outlook this season a little bit different if he had that on his stats. Instead, he just has like a couple carries against Marshall, and then he got hurt against Stanford, and that was it.
That was it.
But man, he looked fast. He looked fast in that spring game where he broke out. You go, I know he's a walk-on, but man, he looks pretty good out there. And now he's back. Now we'll see how healthy he is. He's 10 months removed from an Achilles injury. That's pretty fast to come back from that injury. So I wonder if it might be, early in the season, maybe not as much. Later in the season, he could carve out more of a role as he gets more back to himself. But it's an interesting room of options. I don't think there's anybody that's Bayshall Tootin, but they do have the pieces that you can kind of piece together an interesting rushing attack.
You could run a swing pass to Prelo, and if you can hit him in the hands while he's moving forward with forward momentum, like he's a guy who can definitely do damage after the catch because he is very fast. And they put him on scholarship in the offseason, so they wouldn't do that if they didn't feel like he was capable of helping in some way, even if it's just maybe like a kickoff returner. But he is a guy with speed that has the potential to contribute in some way.
Are you surprised they took 3 running backs then? Like, that is a crowded running back room.
No, because these days, you can pretty much have as many scholarship players as you want.
That's true.
Yeah, so if you have a chance to bring some extra guys on, go ahead and do it.
And I think part of it is you look at Terrion Stewart's history, he has been banged up throughout his career. I mean, I think that kind of comes with his running style.
So is Hawkins.
Yeah, Hawkins has been beat up. Bennett, I think, missed some time. I want to say as well. I mean, that's the nature of the position. And in addition to that, Stewart didn't even get here until the summer. He was going to miss the spring. So I think just to get through spring practice, you wanted to take another guy. And
Stewart's been nicked up in the preseason.
So, yeah, I mean, look at who is coming back. I mean, Stewart transferred in, nicked up. Hawkins coming in from a lower level. You have Coney, you have Tyler Mason, who was a freshman who's redshirt, and then you have Prelu, who's coming off an Achilles injury. So I'm sure when you're taking transfers in January, you have no idea what shape he'll be in the following year. So I think it makes sense the number of guys they took there.
Yeah, and you also have to remember that Terrion Stewart, he didn't play spring ball for anybody last year. So until this month, he hadn't taken a hit since November. Right, so it takes a little while to get back. So it's not a surprise that he's a little nicked up right now because it's been so long since he's had contact.
True. The wide receiver room, obviously, this is a brand new group. Again, Donovan Green seems like a guy that is going to play a big role, and he was a very, very good player when he was healthy at Wake Forest. That was a little bit few and far between the last couple of years. Aiden Green comes back. Isaiah Spencer comes in from Jackson State. Takai Heath, Tucker Holloway, Cam Selden from Tennessee, and Keelan Adams. Lots of question marks, but who is wide receiver number 1, do you think? Or who are the 2 guys you think are going to contribute the most?
Well, speaking of nicked up, Donovan Green has spent so much of his career at Wake Forest nicked up. When he hasn't been nicked up, he's been a very good receiver. He was the number 3 recruit in the state of North Carolina, number 128 overall. He's the highest ranked recruit in Wake Forest history. That was a huge recruiting coup for them.
Virginia Tech offered him as a safety.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think knock on wood, he's been healthy ever since he arrived at Virginia Tech. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He's a very explosive athlete. If he can stay healthy, I think he and, no relation, Aiden Green.
Gang Green.
Wide receiver. Oh, so it's no longer Bad Boys?
Oh, I don't know. That's just what I would call it.
Gang Green. Wow. You should suggest
That's good.
that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Get shirts made up. I actually, at Fan Day, I spoke to Aiden Green's parents for a little bit. Nice people.
Yeah.
Podcast listeners, so we like them there. I think those 2 are probably the top 2 guys that I would look at. And you look at Donovan Green's history of production, if he can stay healthy, that's a pretty good weapon there.
I think so, yeah.
I think he's got all the tools there. It's just a matter of health. And then you look at Aiden Green and the way he stepped up late last year, stepping in that game, in the bowl game, 100-yard game in the bowl game, leaped over that defender that one time. I mean, the dude is athletic. He's got 40-plus inch vertical as well. I think that's a good start. And I think those guys are ready to take on that responsibility of being lead guys in a receiver room. The others, I'm kind of in, Cam Selden, new position for him. How can they be creative and use different ways while he's still kind of getting used to the position? And a lot of other guys that haven't done it a whole lot. I mean, Tucker Holloway is older in that room, but he doesn't have a lot of production in his history at receiver. He got injured, missed all of last season. Takai Heath's a guy who's been injured a lot since he's been started, but hearing good things about him and his progress. Keelan Adams missed the spring. He was nicked up. I mean, there's a sort of a common thread here with all these guys. They've been nicked up or injured at some point in their careers and have not been able to get on the field and do it in a steady kind of way. That'll be an interesting thing to watch because they need more than just two guys at the top.
Yeah, and I'm confident in the development of Aiden Green. We had him on the podcast at one point last summer. I think, and or last spring. I forget exactly when. We like talking to him. He's got a good head on his shoulders, so I feel good about his development. We know he's a talented player. He's got to get more consistent catching the ball. We know that, but I think he will. I don't think that'll be an issue. To me, it'll be most interesting is who wins that third wide receiver spot. Whether it's going to be like Cameron Selden, who he was in that spot in the spring, but was he in that spot sort of by default? We know he's a great athlete, but he hadn't played any receiver since high school. There was nobody to really challenge for that slot spot because you had the Greens on the outside. Holloway was still working his way back. Isaiah Spencer wasn't in the program at that point. So I think we're penciling in Cameron Selden right now as the starter because he was the starter in the spring. But, I could see them going trotting either Selden, Spencer, or even Heath as the starter in the slot. If they start the season with a 3 wide receiver formation, they might start it with a 2-back or a 2 tight end formation.
Yeah, the starting wide receiver, so much of that is based on formation.
Exactly.
And what play are they going to run? So sometimes you get those games like they started 5 receivers, that was just the first play.
Did Colin Schlee technically start the Vanderbilt game?
I think
he was on the field the first play of the game. Yeah.
Yep. So you get those weird this is his second start. It's not really. Spencer's an interesting one. He's done it before. He was coming from where?
Jackson State. So it's a lower level. You got to see how it translates.
But he's a guy who's been on the field and done it. Chance Wiggins is banged up right now. It sounds like that might be a little more serious than the other guys that were banged up. I guess we'll maybe get an update on that today. There's just guys that are in the program that are interesting players that have not done it a whole lot. So who steps up into that will be very interesting. A name we haven't mentioned, Snook Peterkin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's really skinny, but, man, he's a tall dude, and it seems like when we're out there at practice, he's always making plays, or at least in the vicinity of making plays. That's what you look for in a receiver. And, I think I said this on a previous podcast. Maybe he's a pretty well-regarded recruit. Maybe you compare him to somebody like Trey Turner in 2018, where didn't play a ton of plays early on, but always seemed to be impactful. It's a 15-yard catch on 3rd and 13. He seemed to make those plays once a game, to the point that he got that name Big Play Trey early on because he always made big plays early on. And then at the end of the season, it was more of a starting role. He's catching touchdown passes against UVA and stuff like that. But early in the season, it was kind of getting him acclimated to that. I don't know if you do that with Peterkin, if you have a wide receiver room where you don't need to do that necessarily. But outside of those top 2 guys, the 2 Greens, there's not a whole lot of history of production.
I wrote my top newcomers article on Monday, and I dedicated a whole section to Peterkin because he was the newcomer that Tech's veteran players brought up more than any other on either side of the ball. He's apparently just got a smoothness to him as a wide receiver, and despite his size, he's aggressive at going towards the ball and everything like that.
Sure.
He's also a member of the basketball team at Tech, and that's the reason he's so skinny is because as soon as football seasons ended in the past, he spent his entire spring and summer playing high school and AAU basketball, and he's never touched a weight room before, really.
Is that going to stick, do you think?
No.
Side note? Okay.
Unless he's some sort of
never sticks.
These days, it never sticks.
You say what you got to say to get him in the program, but then the realities of the situation is you're not
right.
Mike Young to the rescue.
Right. So let's say he plays this year as a true freshman, which I think the injury to Wiggins really helps him because Virginia Tech needs another wide receiver on the outside with height. And you got Devin Alvis, who apparently had a really good practice last week. He could potentially provide that, but at the same time, that's one practice. We'll see. Peterkin, I think, has great long-term potential, and he's got a chance to work his way in there. Again, maybe not early in the season, but maybe gradually. But I think at the end of this season, if the coaching staff really feels like he's got a great future as a wide receiver, they'll have to sit him down and say, listen, you will only realize your significant potential if you hit the weight room hard starting in January. You can't do that if you're at the end of Mike Young's bench.
Yeah.
Another interesting name on here we're talking about Peterkin. the Peterkin of last year was Keelan Adams, basically. I mean, a highly recruited guy, blue chip type player. Did not get on the. I think he got on the field a little bit last year.
Played
in the bowl
game,
Yeah, he
yeah.
redshirted, but I feel like that's a guy that we're maybe not talking about enough because he missed the spring. We didn't get to see him do much stuff out there.
And there were questions whether
I'm
he
not
was
sure
going
if
to
he
get
missed the
cleared.
entire spring or did he get back for some of it.
No, because remember they didn't clear him until late this summer.
Okay.
But Pry told us in Charlotte we still haven't cleared him yet. Turns out he was cleared. It was just a lot later than they expected. So he's still a young player, and young players need that spring practice, and he didn't get it. So he probably didn't advance quite as much as he could have had he been healthy. But yes, he's a guy. He can help on the outside or on the inside. And remember, let's not forget he's the all-time leading receiver in Virginia history.
Yeah, I feel like for his high school accomplishments and his pedigree, he's maybe flying under the radar a little bit, and rightfully so. If he wasn't out there in the spring, we haven't seen a whole lot in the summer here. So he's another one. I think they have a lot of interesting pieces that could become good, but you don't know what they've done because they just haven't done it on the field.
All right, let's take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors here at TechSideline.com. This episode of the Tech Sideline podcast comes to you from the Tech Solutions Studio. Tech Solutions, located in Arlington, Virginia, provides specialized CITSA, engineering, and financial and advisory services to the Department of Defense and Intelligence community. Based on the philosophy of only hiring the best of the best, we pride ourselves on being customer and mission focused. A Washington Post top workplace worker and winner in 2024 and 2025, we're always looking for talented and motivated individuals to join our team. Visit techsolutionsva.com/careers to learn more. That's TECsolutionsva.com/careers. All right, back to the Tech Sideline podcast. All right, welcome back to episode 430, the Tech Sideline podcast. We continue to talk about the offense of Virginia Tech in 2025. Chris, let's go to tight ends. Some continuity in that room. Benji Guysnell, Harrison St. Germain, Zeke Wimbish. What are your overall thoughts on that room as a whole?
And they also put Jarichus Hairston on scholarship in the offseason. Jarichus?
Where is he? Where is he from? Bassett? Bassett. Okay.
Yeah.
Father, also a podcast listener. So
Really?
Okay.
yeah. A lot of parents come up to me like,
Yeah, no
watch
kidding.
you on the podcast.
Nice.
I'm like, wow,
Nice.
I'm surprised.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they've been fairly impressed with Hairston if they put him on scholarship in the offseason. I think it's a good overall group. You wonder what the drop-off level is between the top two guys and the bottom two guys, because last year was basically just a two-man rotation. And I think the biggest question for me is how much does the blocking take a step forward? Like, we know Gosnell is a really good receiving tight end, but he and even St. Germain have struggled in blocking to a certain extent. And I think that's one of the reasons they flipped some coaching responsibilities around, and Brent Davis is now the tight ends coach. He's a former offensive line coach. Last year he was assistant offensive line coach at Tech, and from my understanding, it was actually him making a lot of the blocking adjustments rather than Ron Crook. He's just got a really good mind for the game and everything like that. So I think they made that move with the idea of that's good. He's going to help them from a blocking standpoint. I fully believe that they can be, good contributing wide receivers, and Gosnell has already proven that he can be. But if they can take a step forward as blockers, that's got a chance to be a very good group.
I'm interested in what Gosnell can do this year. It's not a flashy group. It's not a sexy group by any means, but Gosnell finally had an off season. Yeah. Every other year in his life, it feels like he's had knee season. It feels like he was like 5 years old. He was having knee surgery in the offseason. He always had some sort of offseason procedure. This year he didn't. He finally had an offseason. He talked to us earlier this August. He's like, I feel like I'm in the best shape ever. He's like, I look at last year's training camp, and he said he felt like he was 8 months pregnant. He's like, I was just big. I was just fat. And he feels like he's in great shape now. And certainly with the offseason program with Ferguson, everybody's, raved about the kind of shape that they're in from that. Running them like,
I've heard they've been running a lot.
Yeah. I think he's primed for a better year just because he's older. It sounds like he's in better shape and finally had an offseason for once. So I'm curious to see how the tight ends are incorporated into this offense. Because you look at Philip Montgomery offenses, you think receivers, you think running backs, you think quarterbacks. You don't really think tight ends. So how are they going to be used in this offense? What will their effectiveness be?
Do you think Benji Guysnell sneakily could be one of the better tight ends in the ACC?
Certainly receiving.
Okay.
I think he could. We need to see it as a blocker. But we're talking about a guy who was once committed to Ohio State. This is a talented football player, and he's got 2 years left. And I think he's not quite, he's just scratching the surface. I think his last 2 years could be very good.
Voted a team captain.
Yeah,
Yes.
That came out the other day.
Who are the so him, Caleb Woodson,
John Love.
John Love,
Kyron
Gilliam, and Jones.
Gus now.
Makes sense. Yeah.
5
Okay.
of them.
All right. All right.
And a giant log that they were holding in the picture.
Right. What was I gonna say? What did that signify?
Yeah, it was from the when they went to that Boy Scouts camp to do like some old school training and stuff like
They
that.
chop down trees.
Funny that they had this giant log that they were holding in the
You
picture.
reminded me, Nick's bachelor weekend. I snuck out one night and I took the kayak out to the edge of the water. We were at the lake at Smith Mountain Lake, and I took one of the logs. It's still in the back of my car. I got that big log. Do you remember that I grabbed that one night and we walked in the house? Yeah, I saw that last night. I was like, yeah, I've been there. Not to that extent, but I have been there. So I get it. You try to have some fun at the lake too, even though that was the conditioning trip. So. Offensive line. We talked about this a little bit last week in the podcast. The starting 5 right now, left to right: Johnny Garrett, Leif Gannum, Kyle Altuner, Montavious Cunningham, and Tomas Remak. But you guys seem a little bit concerned about the depth as a whole. Doesn't seem like the Hokies can afford any injuries there, Andy.
Well, they need Meadows to get back and healthy. He was in the boot the last time we saw him. Sounds like that's short term, and he'll be back. Tommy Ricard, they need him to develop at center. He was going to have the opportunity in the bowl game, and I think he got sick, food poisoning or something
Horrible
like that.
timing.
Right before the bowl game. They need some guys to step up behind Jade Muskrat, the Auburn transfer. He's got some versatility. I think he played guard, tackle. It was something. It was going to be him or Bob Schick, and Bob Schick ended up transferring. And then they bring in Muskrat, and Muskrat offers a little bit more versatility position wise than Schick did. So. They've got some guys behind them. We'll see how that develops. But I think part of the fact that they feel so confident about the 5 right now is that those backups aren't really close to that starting 5. I think there's maybe a little bit of a gap there. Certainly with Meadows being hurt, I would look at him as the number 6 guy.
Yeah, I think we got spoiled a little bit in that 2 or 3 years with Vance Weiss, where you could go like 8 or 9 deep on the offensive line.
Yeah, that never happens anymore.
No. Everybody's looking for more offensive line depth. Everybody. It's just not that many big human beings like that who can move their feet. So if you can actually get depth on the offensive line, then you're a step ahead of everybody else, because that 1 year Weiss had like 5 future NFL players in his starting lineup, plus 1 or 2 NFL guys as backups.
Right.
That was just, you don't see that, right? I'm not as worried about the interior. It's like if one of the tackles goes down, what do you do? Like Muskrat has plenty of experience as a tackle, but really he's only 6'3", so how much do you really want him at tackle? Like he's generally he was a backup 200 snap guy at Auburn as a junior, and then didn't play at all basically last year. And there's a reason for that. I think like his versatility, but he's not a guy you want in there as like an every down player. Montavious Cunningham is a guy who could potentially shift out to offensive tackle if there were injuries, and then you could put Meadows in at guard. But obviously when you've got a redshirt freshman starting at center and his backup is also a redshirt freshman,
right?
There are depth issues everywhere. This group needs to stay healthy. Like I do think the starting 5 can be a competent group. I like the fact that they have Cunningham and Remak right next to each other. You like to have a strength on the offensive line. If it's 3rd and 1, where do you want to run the football? And if it's 3rd and 1 against South Carolina and a key 4th quarter drive, I want to run between those 2 guys. They're your two most experienced players. Whereas on the left-hand side, you've got Gannum, who I think has taken a step forward, but at the same time, they tried to start him the first 3 games last year, and then bam, he wasn't ready. So they pulled him out, and he hardly played the rest of the season. And then you've got Johnny Garrett at left tackle, who I think will hold up well in the run game, but he struggled a decent amount with his pass blocking last year. So the left side of the line for me is less trustworthy than the right side of the line, but I think it's correct to put your 2 most proven players next to each other so you do have a strength at some point, at some area of the line.
I think the concerning thing, if you're a Virginia Tech fan here, and they've heard good things about the offensive line, and Pry said that's been the most improved group, is that there are concerns across every single position. If you just look at the situation, Johnny Garrett, one career start. Leif Gannum fell out of the starting lineup last year, wasn't ready for it. Center, redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
It's tough to have a redshirt freshman as a center. Montavious Cunningham at right guard couldn't get on the field last year. A lot of projection there. They like the direction he's going. Couldn't get on the field last year. And Tomas Rimac, great player, has not played right tackle a heck of a lot. So you go across each position. Perhaps it all comes together. Perhaps this is, Matt Moore is a serious upgrade in the coaching front at the offensive line. But it is tough to get an offensive line to gel like that. And looking at with all the questions they have, that's still, in my opinion, the biggest question mark on offense is how this offensive line comes together. Can they play as well as they want? Do they have the depth that they need? It's sort of been the question for the last couple of years, but I think it's still a present question right now.
Yeah. Kyle Altuner. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I agree completely. He's Tech's fourth offensive line coach in 5 years.
Okay.
It's just kind of a jumbled together group up front. I think he's a major upgrade. Just not just from a coaching standpoint, but a player relations standpoint. He's going to do a much better job of that than the guy he's replacing. I don't necessarily think your average fan will realize that until next season, though. Because even great coaches aren't miracle workers. And I'm not saying this line can't be good. I expect you're going to look at them in November and feel like that they're a better unit they were at the beginning of the season. But I don't think you just replace 5 starters, two of which went to the SEC, one of which is currently on the Raiders roster, right? I don't think you just replace 5 starters and roll out of bed and be better, even if you've got a better coach. It's going to take some time.
That's what I was going to ask. We'll get back to Kyle Altuner in a minute. But Matt Moore, you obviously really, really like him. You said that a lot. How much of an upgrade can there be in 1 year? I mean, it's been one off season. He's coming in. It's a completely different group. Can the upgrade that is being made in the coaching side of things be enough to make Virginia Tech that much better on the line when you're replacing the type of guys that you're having to replace?
Right away, probably not.
Okay.
I think that would be extremely difficult. Now, what helps is that obviously he's coached Rimac before, albeit at a different position, but, Rimac knows what he wants. He recruited Kyle Altuner. He recruited Leif Gannum. I think he recruited, of Tech's 15 offensive linemen, I think he recruited 10 of them. Either they went to West Virginia or they came to Virginia Tech and picked Virginia Tech over a West Virginia offer. So even the ones he didn't take to West, even the ones he didn't sign at West Virginia, he's still familiar with a lot of Tech's guys. Like he recruited, he recruited Tommy Ricard. He offered Aiden Lynch. There are a number of guys, Leif Gannum, obviously. I think that one came down to Virginia Tech.
Is Brody Meadows in there too?
Yeah, I think Brody Meadows was probably in there too. So he's got familiarity with a lot of Virginia Tech's players, and I think that could help speed the process up a little bit. But, Vance Weiss was a very good offensive line coach. But even then, it took a while. It's not like they hit the ground running right away, and you're like, man, this line's dominant. It takes a while.
Yeah. I think the offensive line, more than any other position group, affords that opportunity, though. You look at receiver, you can upgrade the coach, but it really comes down to talent. Individual talent, how this guy's running the routes, is he getting open, stuff like that. Running back, can he break tackles? Can he hit the hole with speed? Coaching can help a little bit there, but I feel like the talent upgrade is more important. Offensive line, you need talent, no doubt. You can't roll out a bunch of Division III type guys. They're 240 pounds and expect to succeed in this whole thing. But the cohesion of that offensive line and playing together is critical. It's they always say, 5 fingers in a fist or whatever it is, like that. That's how it works. These guys have to be playing in unison. They have to be playing off each other. If you have one guy kind of freelancing or the assignment breaks down in one spot, the whole thing falls apart. So I think there is a strength in numbers thing there. I think there is a cohesion factor on the offensive line that if they're playing together, and it's maybe not just like this standout group of 5-star guys that go across the offensive line, you can still be a pretty good offensive line. So that'll be the critical thing, is how they play together, how quickly they pick up what Matt Moore is teaching. Again, I think it takes time, but I think the potential is there that they could see a drastic improvement.
And there are certain things you can do schematically to hide certain inefficiencies. you're not going to have a dominant offense without a dominant offensive line, but, you can put something competent on the field. Like Bowen, for whatever faults he had, one of the best blocks I ever saw Bob Schick make was a block he actually didn't make because Tech ran a misdirection play against Syracuse. Drones takes off up the middle for like a 50-yard gain. Bob Schick literally runs 40 yards up the field, never touched anybody because the Syracuse linebackers took off in the wrong direction. They bit on the misdirection. Nobody had to block them. Tech's offensive lineman didn't really have to do anything on that play because the play design, the play call was so good. Now you can't run smoke and mirrors every single play, and if it's not going to work every single time you do it. But there's certain things you can do to put your linemen in a better situation to where they're not quite as exposed as much.
What an infamous game. Virginia Tech and Syracuse in the Dome last year.
No, this was 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago.
When Tech blew them out.
That was a great game.
Yeah,
that was a fun game. That was a fun game. Kyle Tuner's getting a lot of hype. And obviously you mentioned redshirt freshman at the starting center position. That's obviously another big question mark. But I don't know, like I read David Teal's story the other day. He's somebody that I think Brent Price sees as a leader, and he mentioned a future captain in the future.
Yeah.
He's somebody that obviously is getting a lot of attention, and obviously that's what you want to see going into the season.
He's got a mohawk too. Or at least
he
did on Media Day, which
so does
you gotta like
Lucas
that. You gotta
Austin.
like that. I mean, that's got a little Brock Hoffman to him there if you're doing a mohawk like that. So I think Price said it. Part of the reason they felt comfortable not ponying up and paying more money for Braylon Moore to stick around is because they felt comfortable with somebody like Al Tuner coming into the program and possibly taking over that starting spot at center. So, we'll see. I think there's going to be growing pains that come along with just being a young center like that, stuff you haven't seen on the field before. But they seem to like his upside quite a bit to feel so certain after the spring that he's the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to Montgomery after the spring game, and we didn't even have to ask him specifically. He's like, yeah, I think Al Tuner's locked that spot down. You don't hear that a lot for a first-time center coming into a program.
No, you don't. I think he's got a good background. He played for Good Counsel in Maryland, and you all know I love that Maryland league. And he's literally going head-to-head with Emmett Laws in high school, right? They play in the same league, DeMatha versus Good Counsel. So many teams like that up in Maryland, and you get players out of that league, and they're more ready early in their careers. Like Dante Levitt didn't play a ton of snaps over the last 2 years, but when he did play, he played well. He was ready to play. He came from an outstanding DeMatha program. Emmett Laws, of course, played really well in the bowl game, and you hear nothing but good things about him.
Yeah.
Tech has a linebacker in the program right now, Noah Chambers, who Brenton High is really high on, and he's already physically ready to play. Probably won't play this year, but we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But I love signing players from that league in Maryland. I think they come in more mentally mature. They come in more disciplined. And I think they're ready to play earlier in their careers.
So if there's one guy on this offense, other than Kyron Drones, that you cannot afford to lose this year to injury, who would that be, do you think?
Probably Remack.
Remack, okay.
Yeah, I think just for his experience on that line, and then if he goes out, what do you do with the other tackle spot? Mm-hmm. I don't even know who the Muskrat, could Cunningham slide out there? Somebody like Aiden Lynch behind him. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough spot. He's one critically must stay healthy for them.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. For me, that's absolutely the case because I kind of question the tackles to begin with because Johnny Garrett switching to the left side and he hadn't played there full time before, and he kind of struggled with pass blocking last year anyway. And then Remack, even though he's been a great player, he's never played tackle before.
Right. Sure.
So.
Lucas Austin, I guess he could be an option too.
Yeah, Hans Hammer, I think, was in the two deep in the spring. What
was it?
The number 2 left tackle.
It was such a limited group. I feel like
it was. But Hans Hammer's only played 6 career snaps.
Yeah.
Right. So I have some question marks about the starting tackles, much less the backup. So you can't lose Remack.
Okay. All right. To wrap things up on the offensive end, obviously we talked about Kyron Drones I think is going to be better this year because he's healthy. Hokies upgraded at the offensive coordinator spot, it seems like. However, do you think that Kyron Drones and Virginia Tech has the horses around him to be better than they were offensively a season ago?
I think there's certain aspects of it where I could see saying, yeah, they'll be better. I think Drones himself is in a better spot mentally. I think last year when he went down to Florida with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, couple of NFL guys who are like really advanced passers at the college level.
And needled him a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's some of those sessions where they're like, you know, yeah, you won the bowl game, but you had to run for like 150 yards.
Right.
I think he heard that a little bit.
Of course,
like,
absolutely.
I could be a passer too.
Yeah, right. And I think that affected him. And as he said, he tried to be somebody he's not to start last season. I think he understands where his mistakes. And this year, yeah, he went south to work out again, but he took like 7 or 8 of his own teammates with him. My understanding is he flew them down there on his own dime, and they all worked out together. Which is, to me, it's just a much more productive offseason than the one he had last year. I do think Tech will be better coached in multiple positions. I do think they have enough running backs. Maybe there's not a Tootin, but I think they can replace Tootin's production. Wide receiver, I'm not as worried about as most. I think if Donovan Green gets hurt, then I think you could potentially have some issues there. But if you look at last year's group of wide receivers, they didn't get anything out of Ollie Jennings till the end of the season because he was injured. And Daquan Felton probably took a step back from 2023. They didn't use Jalen Lane properly. I mean, I feel like the only wide receiver that fulfilled his potential last year was Gosnell.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, that was a talented group. Well, there's 3 of them in the NFL right now, but it didn't achieve what it could have achieved.
I think that's part of the offensive plan. I don't think they had a coordinator that could tap into the receiver's potential.
I agree 100%.
And I think this year they do.
Yep.
I think Montgomery can do that. And obviously quarterback health. You have to have a quarterback that can get them the ball as well. And also, there's not a Tootin on this roster. You want to give Tootin the ball a lot if you're in that situation. I don't fault the Hokies for that, but they did not get nearly enough out of their receivers last year. And you look at how Jalen Lane is performing in the preseason, the way Commanders fans are talking about him. It's like, how underutilized was that guy during his time with the Hokies that they just did not get him the ball? He should have been a guy that they were throwing the ball to him, 8-9 times a game. Yeah. Just because of the damage he can do once he caught it. So I think from the sense of the offensive setup and a coordinator who's been around longer, who understands, these are my weapons. These are the guys I have to get the ball to. A healthy quarterback. The potential is there. Will the offensive line come around? Is the running back room up to the challenge of replacing Tootin? Can Drone stay healthy? Do some of these younger receivers step up? There's so many questions. It's tough to say, yes, this will be a better offense than last year. I think the potential is there for it, though.
Yeah, I think... Remember the Boston College game last year? Or the last 2 years, where Tech puts up over
2 very good days.
Over 600 yards of total offense, and what was it, 48 points this past year. I don't know if there will be a Boston College game this year. Like, I don't know if this unit can go out and just dominate somebody like that. But I also don't think there's going to be any, or at least not very many moments like the first half of the Vanderbilt game or the first 3 quarters of the Rutgers game or the first month of the season in general where you're just like, what are they doing? Right?
Yeah.
Or Clemson.
Right.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Clemson wasn't Clemson last year. They gave up rushing yards more than they have in like decades. And Tech couldn't run the ball against them.
Well, yeah.
Granted, they had a quarterback.
The only 4 times they gave it to the running back was to the gimpy running back.
Right.
Decoy.
The quarterback and the running back
were not in a quarterback
to play in that game
move.
due to injuries. Right. But so there are a lot of head scratchers last year.
Yeah, and I think there will be fewer head scratchers. So I don't know if the highs will be as high, but I definitely don't think the lows will be as low.
Anything else on the offense that we didn't want to hit on, that we didn't hit on, that you guys want to hit on, I should say? Anything else that we should slide in there before we go?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I feel like we covered it pretty well. Certainly a challenge right off the bat. I know South Carolina lost a lot from last year's defense, but they've got some dudes still on that defense. That defensive end, we talk about tackles and the challenge the tackles have. Right off the bat, you get one of the best you're going to face all year. So have a plan for that guy. Chip him with some tight ends and stuff like that. Do whatever you can to give your offense a chance to succeed in that game.
So what's coming up on TechSideline.com?
So much that I can't even remember it.
Okay.
I've got a Tristan Racer article coming today where he talks about the rule changes in college football this year. You know how every year there are points of emphasis and rule changes and things like that. I actually don't know what they are because I haven't edited the article yet, but I'm going to get on that and it'll be posted by the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a mailbag coming tomorrow. First mailbag I've done in a while, so good to do that. I talked to Shane Beamer. I got to find a time for that article to be published at some point. A couple practice reports in there, and a cookout to host. So
yeah, true.
It's busy,
true.
and a class to prepare for on Monday, which I don't have my syllabus done yet.
Yeah, are you excited? Teaching again this semester?
Yeah, it should be interesting. Last time I taught was in 2021, and that was the semester that Justin Fuente got fired, which kind of a busy semester when you're doing that. So I'm hoping it's not as busy of a semester in that.
Oh my God.
It could be
if anything like that happens, like fast forward 10 years, we really need to change football coaches. Let's hire Andy Bitter.
Is an adjunct to go teach a sports journalism class again. So it'll be a busy fall. Let's put it that way.
Speaking of Shane, I saw Cheryl the other day, and I'm
really?
So that game day's creeping up where Cheryl Beamer goes into her wardrobe. And it's like, what do I wear?
Find some shade of maroon / garnet.
You know she got a custom made, half Virginia Tech, half South Carolina.
I don't know.
All in on South Carolina.
I think the Beamers are Team Shane all the way. And if you're a parent, I think you would understand that that's the most obvious thing in the world.
Oh, sure.
And if you're a football fan, you'd be like, come on now, what the heck? It's like, listen. This is their son. They are on Team Shane in this whole thing. Right. Frank is on Team Shane. Cheryl's on Team Shane. And they might, try to play it down a little, but where their rooting interest is in this game. And I don't blame them.
Well, luckily, Coach Beamer can just put on a sport coat. He'll be good to go.
Right.
He can put on a sport coat.
He can put on a maroon burgundy sports coat, and nobody will know.
One of those, like, checkered 70s looking ones that he's got.
Yeah.
He's got a great collection of those things.
Like a 1970s couch type sports
It
coat.
might be from the 70s for all we know. I think it's more modern than that. Frank has upgraded his wardrobe, but he's got that style to it still. I think he can pull out something.
I saw Shane's wife, Emily, made cookies for the media yesterday at their press conference.
Yeah, well, I asked him about that in our interview.
Did you really?
That was sort of like he's a Netflix star at this point. He's on that SEC Netflix show, which is pretty good. I don't know if you guys have watched any of that thing, but his wife's cookies were like, people were criticizing her cookies, like, oh, they're not cooked long enough or stuff like that. So Shane actually started a press conference last week. He's like, they're great cookies. I'm like, that was one of my first questions. Like, did you think you'd ever have to defend your wife's baking skills because of a Netflix show?
So at South Carolina, they got the coach's wife baking cookies for the media.
Yes.
At Virginia Tech, they're actually going to stop feeding the media this year for every sport except football.
Is that true?
That's a true story,
yes,
right?
They're not even going to feed them for basketball games anymore.
Here, Nick's got
to be fair, they barely feed us for football. That food is not great.
What'd you say, Nick?
Yeah.
That's exactly what people want to hear.
But if you saw the WIT press conference, or not press conference, but presentation on Monday, you understand that they're trying to find money from any way possible.
The media meal at Gas Coliseum for basketball, I love the people over there, but sometimes it's like, ooh, what are we doing? And Andy's experienced it too, because he's covered some basketball.
Some of this stuff is sponsored by, they're not paying for that stuff.
Yeah.
So come on now.
Go ahead, Nick.
Can confirm they are no longer giving me $5 meal vouchers to PA announce men's and women's soccer at Virginia Tech.
What is the
$5?
Can it just be a concession?
Which is two hot dogs.
What kind of a meal does $5 get you these days anyway?
This
a candy bar?
This is a red line. This shall not stand here.
The popcorn's $4 now. At Gas Coliseum used to be $2.50. And I eat a lot of popcorn at those games. A lot of popcorn. So David obviously is gone today. He's doing soccer interviews and then an interview with Chester Frazier, correct? So he'll have some stuff coming up on basketball front, women's soccer that is in the top 15. So he'll have some stuff coming up there. And then on Nick's front, we will have a defensive preview coming tomorrow. So 3 podcasts in 3 days.
Friday.
Oh, and a Friday Q&A Friday. The Friday Q&A is back, Chris.
And, yeah, it is. And I'll have my written Q&A also on Friday, and I'll finish off my position looks tomorrow with a look at the defensive backs.
Who's doing the Friday Q&A?
Hi, Rob.
Rob, okay. Robert Bateman. All the students back in town. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk tomorrow. Again, 3 podcasts in 3 days. A lot of content, but it's that time of year. So, for Chris Coleman, Nick Brown, Andy Bitter, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from episode 430 of the Tech Sideline podcast. We'll talk to you later this week.